Now that I have obtained the most powerfulest card in the game, it's time to bring all of you a side-decking video. So let's get into it, shall we?
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
Let the good times roll!
What's up everyone, I'm of course the one and only Joker of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I want to start off by saying no, Called by the Grave isn't the most OP card in the game. I just want to have some fun with you guys. And today I want to talk about some side decking cards that I personally find are absolutely great, as well as some honorable mentions and cards that if you're not already running in your main deck, then you definitely should side. So to start us off, I do want to be talking about hand traps. Now hand traps are this big thing in the game right now, and the reason that is because they pretty much get around so much. I mean, we've got a hand trap that negates so many different things. For example, we've got Ghost Ogre, which destroys stuff. We've got Ash that stops you from being able to, search and draw and add stuff and all that. And even Draw, which just locks your opponent down after they draw. Now, primarily if you do not have some of these in your main deck, then they are absolutely needed in your side deck. I mean, if you don't already maining Droll and you go up against a lot of Pendulum players, you feel Droll can really be great because after they search that one, you can still go Droll and they can't get so much benefit. Same thing goes against Trickstars. I mean, if you're versing Trickstars and you drop a Droll, if they can't, go for too many plays after that, which they probably can't because they really do need to search half the time, or, stall you just to be able to get a board after they're drawled, then you can primarily get a really high advantage in the game. But if you don't already have like cards like Ash and Ghost Ogre, I mean, Ash of course is pretty expensive, so another option of this of course is Effect Veiler, and these are some pretty nice cards. But I mean, if you don't already have some hand traps in your deck, I recommend getting them because they can seriously lock down your opponent. Same ones like Honest. Although yes, it is definitely budget, it is super expensive, which is absolutely great. Honest is really great in a light deck, and yes, not everyone uses it, it's still pretty spicy. Another one of course is your Cyframes, and what I mean by this is just straight up Gamma, Driver, and Omega. Yes, you pretty much negate and destroy something, and if you have to have a pretty much empty board to go into all this, which does put you in a bit of a disadvantage, they can really help you out with getting some awesome boards. And the last hand trap I do want to talk about before I get into the other ones is of course our last Ghost Girl that we have at the moment, which is Reaper. Now Reaper doesn't get to see a lot of play, but Reaper is pretty nice. I mean, you can activate it, say reveal your ABC in your extra deck, or another one which would be Electromite. Hell, when Spirals were top, Double Spiral Helix, all them kind of ones. Cyframe Omega, if you're already running the Cyframe Gammas, it doesn't hurt you. I mean, there are so many different ones you can go into and just stop your opponent from bringing them out, which can really put you in an advantage. But the problem with this is you do have to free up some extra deck space. There is no always guarantee that you're going to be needing to use this. If your opponent is good enough, they should be able to get around it. But there are just some different options for your hand traps. Now, another thing is, if you're not already main decking them, you should definitely be siding them. And then of course is Dark Hole and Regeki. If you don't have a Regeki, it's okay. I mean, not everyone does, but I recommend picking one up. Seriously, if you don't already main deck these, you've got to be siding them. Same thing goes with that back row removal. Here's three right here. Twin Twister, Mystical Space Typhoon, and my personal favorite, Cosmic Cyclone. If you do not have something that gets around back row, then in your main deck you have to be siding it, because yes, not every deck that runs, like I don't main deck my back row removal, and the reason I don't is because I don't really need to use it that much. But when I go up against a deck that I know has heavy back row, it's nice to know that I can still use it. Same thing goes with, if you're going against Pendulum decks, these are the ones that you want to be using. And talking about Pendulum, here are two cards that are straight up beast. Anti-Spell Fragrance and Undating Nightmare. Undating can be put into anything, and Anti-Spell Fragrance is basically, stop your opponent from activating spells straight away. So this does lock down a lot of Pendulum players and does make them pretty salty. And another way to get around Pendulum players, of course, is that Dimensional Barrier. Dimensional Barrier gets around so many different things, and I know I'm going over these pretty quick. If you want to talk about these more in depth, feel free to comment down below. I'm happy to talk about them more. But yes, Dimensional Barrier is so spicy because, you know, if you're going up against Invoked, you call that Fusion. If you're going up against a heavy Pendulums, then you just call Pendulums. Not many people need to really call Synchros and all that, but still, it is always nice to use. So those are just a few different options. I of course got some more for you guys. My other personal favorite options are, before I get into some honorable mentions, is the Kaiju lineup. And the Kaiju lineup is straight up what I like to run is these 4. And the reason I run these 4 is because primarily one can get over the other. So yes, Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, you know, you've got your Thunder. I don't like running the other one because, you know, machine decks can use it pretty heavy. You've got Humongous, and then you've got your main Gamma CL. And if you've got more Gamma CLs, feel free to run more because it is the easiest one to get over and is more beneficial for you if you know, draw into so many and you just want to get over your opponent. Although if you don't want to run Kaijus, there are some other options, and these are primarily, you know, if your opponent has that unbreakable board, you know, if they've got Heralds, if they've got Masterpiece, if they've got that, Kaijus and tributing over them are the best way to go sometimes. And what I mean by this is, even if you want the budget option of Lava Golem, or hell, even Sand Claws, and if you've got it, Rust Sphere mode. I mean, some of them are just so spicy, so amazing, because they get around a lot of those annoying boards. Especially if your opponent has a lot of them, then you can just go into as many as you want. The fun part about Sand Claws is you can just keep on tributing over stuff and force your opponent to have this card. Yeah, it doesn't always be used that much, but I mean, unlike Kaijus where you can only tribute 1, if you had multiple Sand Clauses, you can just keep on tributing for days, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Now, there are a few, you know, honorable mentions I do want to get into because those are my main personal favorites, other than, of course, Called by the Grave. This one I'm saving to the very end, guys. But yes, those are my main ones of the whole Kaiju lineup. If you're not running something already in your main deck that is definitely needed, like, you know, back row removal, field removal, as well as even those hand traps, then yes, you need to be siding them because they can really help you out. Now, going on to some honorable mentions, and here are some 4 honorable mentions. They don't get that much play, but they are pretty cool. I mean, you've got Artifact Lancia. Artifact Lancia, yes, hasn't been getting a lot of play recently, but for all those banish heavy decks, for example, if you are versing Trickstars and you really fear that, you know, reincarnation, dropping that Artifact Lancia. If you really fear Cosmos are going to be coming back, Artifact Lancia. Hell, it can be used against a lot of different decks, but the reason it doesn't get much play is because a lot of decks don't rely on too much heavy banish other than your 60 card heavy banish decks. But I mean, once again, they're pretty spicy, so it depends on what you're going up against most of what you should really be siding against. Another one is DD Crow. Now, DD Crow, you know, you just target one of their graveyard cards and instant banish. Now, this card can be used against so much. Blue Eyes, hell, if they've got ABCs and you want to get rid of one of them, if they've got Trickstars and you want to get rid of a particular Trickstar card, I recommend either Reincarnation or, you know, their target, then DD Crow is just absolutely amazing. And another one, of course, is Denko Sekka. Now, Denko Sekka is against all those trap-heavy decks. Now, there aren't too many of them because Paleos have been taken out and all that, and they only get really play of Rogue, personally. But, I mean, against Trickstars, if they would have to get around this, so they have to have Candina. But if you've got protection on the field, or some way to bump this card up, because remember, it is a light, dropping Honest with this, when they try to destroy it, is just absolutely perfect. And the last one with the honorable mentions in the way of hand traps I want to talk about is Hanwata. Now, Hanwata is just a funny card, personally. If you really fear all those burn decks, you drop this and you're not going to be burning, you're not going to be taking effect damage. It's just absolutely mint. Now, I don't personally play this in my side deck because, you know, I don't really have the room for it, but if you really fear all those burn decks, because I don't really also face a lot of them, this is a great card against you. Like, I play Trickstar Burn, as a lot of you might know, and when this card is dropped on me, it really is annoying. And then in the way of particular spells, before I get into my last piles, I've got these 4, and the reason I pick these 4 also for an honorable mention is the Forbidden Chalice Girls, and all these are just absolutely beautiful. The reason this is because it gives your monsters evil protection, or it negates some card effects. These cards are just absolutely beautiful. I mean, okay, let's say your opponent summons Candina, and I know I bring up Trickstars a lot and all that, but it's because it's my main one. They go into Trickstar Candina. If you've got one of the Forbidden Girls, you know, bam, you negate the effect. Also, however, you can play it back on them. You can target your Candina and stop it from being, you know, targeted by other card effects, which is just absolutely beautiful. So this is just a few options on the way of just protecting, as well as some, you know, nice decking cards. But now it's also time to show you guys some other last favorable honorable mentions, and these are pretty much, you know, it's all personal preference. It depends on what you guys like to play, what you feel works best for you, and this isn't to go, you know, straight into, yeah, that's what you should run. I mean, I don't own a Chaos Hunter, but that's another one that's really nice because it stops your opponent from banishing cards, which, you know, can be used against ABCs, Trickstars, 60 card heavy banish decks. It's just absolutely nice that you can use a lot of different cards against particular decks, but once again, it depends on what you're facing at your current locals. If you're going to YCS and all that, you always got to be ready, and that's why personally I carry one of these. This is a side decking folder. This is where all these cards come from. I keep all my main side decking cards in one folder because if I go to a tournament and, you know, they've got a few test rounds, I've said it before, but it's always nice to be more prepared, and it's a lot better if you've already got the cards on you to just be able to go into. And, you know, decide at the last minute, you know what, I'm seeing that nobody's playing Monarchs. I don't particularly need, you know, let's say Mask of Restrict. Let's say, you know, depending on what format you're going into. For instance, let's say nobody plays Pendulum Magicians. So maybe you can bump down that anti-spell fragrance. Now, I'm not saying these like legitimately of that's exactly how it'd go, but there's some other options. I mean, let's say you always play against Burn, but then you go to this one tournament and you don't play against Burn. Take out that hand water. It's just personal options. And of course, if you want help, just comment down below and I'm happy to help you guys. But here are just some other options that I just had to mention. So I've got these two right here, Prohibition and Mind Crush. The reason I want to bring in these two is because they're super budget, super fun, and I wanted to try and keep this video as budget as possible for you guys. I know I showed you guys some expensive cards, and I also showed you guys some cheaper cards because that's what I want to hit. I want to be able to hit that in-between nice era because I don't want to always just show you guys the most expensive cards. Like if I had evenly matched, yeah, I would love to side that, but that's like an $80 card. Then you get it as a playset. I'm not that rich. If you are, go right ahead. It's an absolutely beautiful card. But you've got to have no cards on the field. You've got to skip a battle phase. I don't primarily I wouldn't even use that, but because of how I like to play. But yeah, if you've got that, that's another awesome card. But the reason I want to bring in these two, as I said, is because, you know, they both target cards in your opponent's hand. Same with Chain Disappearance. Cards like that, you know, if your opponent is running particular cards that you really fear, or they run so many particular ones, these cards just get around them. And that's why I want to also show you guys Called by the Grave. Now, Called by the Grave, I mean, I just got this off TCG Player. And it is a really nice card, personally, because I went to a tournament not too long ago and it was used against me. How it happened was, I went Ash, they went, Called by the, no, what was it? I'm trying to remember. It was something like, I activated something, they went, Ash, or, you know, they tried to negate, and then they negated over it was just, I can't even remember the chaining, but it was super annoying because it was one chain after the other, after the other, after the other, and it ended with like Called by the Grave and Gamma. So I was like, oh god. But yes, Called by the Grave is a really nice mint card. So of course I just had to get 3 of these. Because once again, you know, yes, hand traps are a big thing in this game right now, in my personal opinion. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys have seen it. And, you know, the best way to get around some hand traps is Called by the Grave, is the most budget option that you guys can probably run to get around, you know, particular hand traps. And if you don't run them too much, then it's absolutely great. Yes, I run Ash, and yes, I run Ghost Ogre, and yes, I run Droll in my main deck. But I don't primarily need to go into all of them other than Droll if I want to lock my opponent down. Personally, I would rather get that benefit and try and get an awesome board out and then worry about, and, you know, not use that card against them instead of let them use that card against me and hope that I win. So that's why Called by the Grave had to get, you know, that awesome mention, because it is the new spicy card at the moment, in my opinion. And to finish off this video, I wanted to show you guys, you know, 6 beautiful old school cards that target particular decks. So here we go. First, I had to show you guys this card. Royal Command. This is going out to a good man, a good mate of mine, Karen. Now, Karen plays Subterrors, which is a flip effect deck. Royal Command is a card that, you know, if you're really worried about flip effect decks, Royal Command is absolutely great. Another one, of course, is, you know, Imperial Order against those spell-heavy decks. Same thing that goes with this, you know, Skill Drains, if you're worried about effect decks. Now, this card can be used in a lot of different Monarch decks as well as Dracos, because hear me out. If you've got Dracos on the field, you activate Skill Drain. Yeah, Masterpiece is probably your best one in my opinion, and that's why I want it banned. But if you've got Skill Drain and you've got Erupt and all that, or, you know, you've got March of the Monarchs, you've got a board that just protects itself, then it's just absolutely meant to have that Skill Drain. Another one is, you know, with Imperial Order, as I was saying, was of course Royal Decree. They're pretty much the yin to each other's yang. I mean, if you're worried about spells, then you run Imperial Order. If you're worried about traps, you run Royal Decree. Simple as that. I mean, although I did actually face someone, as you guys saw in my tag team video with an awesome mate of mine, Lee, someone activated Royal Decree and then activated another Royal Decree, was still able to get around it because there are so many cards against it and it is seriously brutal to, you know, destroy. But it's still nice to be able to have just in case you really are worried about it. So yes, Royal Decree is really nice to have. And then for my last two, you got Mask of Restrict, because I already mentioned it earlier in this video. It's against Monarchs. Not too much Dracos. I know Dracos heavily rely on traps. Well, not traps, but tributing and all that. But the funny thing is, I actually used anti-spell fragments on them, and they were able to still use card effects that destroy the back row, so they're able to get tribute over stuff. They've got so many cards that when different card effects go off, they can destroy stuff on your field, that, you know, having Mask of Restrict ends up being a dead card. But against Monarchs and all that, it can potentially work a lot better. And then for your last one, you've got Imperial Order, because, you know, against all those banish heavy decks, although there isn't a lot of them, it's always nice to have. So those are my personal opinions on some nice side decking cards. Comment down below what you guys think. If you think I missed any, feel free to comment down below. I definitely want to hear which ones I probably might have missed. I probably did. I can't remember which ones. It's the same thing with, like, if you're not running Solemns and all that in your main deck, you might want to side them, depending on what you're running. But that's the main tip I want to give out for you guys. You know, it depends on what you're running, what you're going up against, that you should probably side against. So I side against, you know, the meta. I side against Pendulums. I side against, you know, Dracos. I side against basically, you know, hand traps, and then back row removal and anything that can really destroy me. So that's what I pretty much side against. I mean, I run Called by the Grave to get over hand traps, I run anti-spell fragments to get over pendulums, I run the Kaiju engine to get over Dracos, and it just goes on from there. So it is really nice to have these particular cards that can really help out depending on what you're going up against. So that's the main tip, as I said, I want to give to you guys. Comment down below, of course, if you guys need any help of, you know, what you feel you don't know how to side against, and of course, as always, I'm happy to help you guys. But of course, as always, I want you guys to also comment down below what you guys want to see next. If it be deck profiles, tips, or anything in general, as long as it's Yu-Gi-Oh related, I'm happy to help you guys as always. But of course, till then, until the next one, I hope you guys keep on smiling, enjoy the game of Yu-Gi-Oh itself, and of course, that's it for me, the Joker, and I'll see you next time, everybody.